It's wonderful to be here this afternoon and share. I want to tell a story, and I want to talk about inspiring and being inspired. As was stated earlier, I'm an artist, but I'm also an educator, and much of the work today is going to be geared around my teaching. And I'm going to talk about some of the teachers who have inspired me and relate that to my teaching in digital fabrication. I teach students how to use things like laser cutters, CNC mills, and digital fabrication tools to build objects, and 3D printers and the like. And when I was in graduate school, I sort of dreamed about the days when these tools would be here, and today they are here, and they're in the hands of the right people, because usually you want to get technology in the hands of the youngest people that you can find. Because they have the clearest vision and the most uninhibited way of approaching them, and it's not burdened with the history and knowledge that we begin to have as adults. But when I began to think about being inspired, I thought about the three great teachers in my life. One was my high school teacher, Renee Darvin. The other was my first department chair, Willis Davis, and the other was the director of the Advanced Computing Center for the Arts and Design at The Ohio State University, Charles Surrey. Everything that I do know about teaching is sort of a gumbo of the lessons that I learned from these three great educators, these three great artists, these three great administrators, and it's that sort of strain and that idea of innovation that I try to carry forward. Renee Darvin was an arts warrior. As a high school student, I went to a science magnet school in Queens, and she happened to be the chair of the art department, and she created the most incredible creative environment that I experienced. Totally transformed my life, taught me that I was an artist and that there was a place in the art world for me, and how important art was. And it was a really positive, creative environment, and that's what I try to create in the classes that I teach around these technologies. I try to accomplish two things. The first thing that I try to accomplish is to bring the studio into the computer lab and find ways to bring the studio into the computer lab and turn it into a place of play and rigorous innovation. The other thing that I try to do is to actually take the computer lab into the studio, so that they are these very computer-mediated experiences, but they're also counterbalanced by very tactile, hands-on experience. It's not either or, it's both. And it's in the continuum of the two and how you look at the two as they relate to each other that define the level of innovation and creativity that artists can begin to create when they learn how to use these tools. And so we try to create wonderful experiences that allow them and show them how to take something like this, which they design on the computer, 3D print it, do the mold making processes that sculptors do, and ultimately turn it into a permanent material as we see there in bronze. So we're actually making stuff, using computers to make things, not to just have things which existed on the screen, but to actually have something that's an actual object that's the result of that inquiry. And we have this attitude that when you get something from one of these tools, a mill, a 3D printer, a laser cutter, you're only about 40% of the way there. You got to find a way to get your hands dirty, to transform it, to create an application. And this is the type of sort of like rigorous inquiry that Renee Darvin inspired in her students in life drawing, in art history, in printmaking, in theater, and I try to carry that spirit with me as I build this program. Willis Davis, incredible artist, incredible human being, more important, and an incredible arts advocate, an incredible administrator, once again. You know, and it's a wonderful combination when you see those things come together. It's innovative. And as a young 24-year-old, when I was on my first teaching assignment there, he taught me two very important lessons. You teach people and not subjects. In both contexts of that word, subject. You know, and the second thing is that how you teach, how you engage your students is more important actually than what you teach, because that's what lives on long after you've left the classroom. And so you have to find when and where your students enter. And some of the work that you're seeing now is work by students who have gone through the basic computer course, and now they have specific projects that they want to accomplish. They've defined the content of the work that they want to produce, and they're beginning to express their creative vision. That's where the innovation and the magic begins to happen. And once again, you got to get your hands on it. You got to get it dirty. It's not the thing that's on the screen that's medicinal, that's clean. You want to talk about things like deterioration, decay, and growth, and wonderful contextual ideas expressed where the techniques and the processes by which the objects come into being become subordinated in some way to the content that they're trying to express. This young man at one point didn't know how to turn on a computer, but he's an incredible sculptor, Once he gained an understanding of the tools, understood the way that they can be applied, we can create something like this, where we're in the shop, parts of it are laser cut, part of it are built traditionally, and that's beautiful. We can talk about images, visions of like warrior culture and things images of power that are directly concerns of the artist. And sometimes things start out with the best of intentions, and they go wrong. But you have to be able, it's not failing that's wrong. It's failing to learn from failure that's wrong. But once again, we're at that 40% stage. We've got 60% still to go, and there are always ways to turn it around. And in the hand of a diligent student who's willing to push through and to see the end game, we can come to a very positive conclusion in this case. And from there, with the confidence that you learn from these types of things, the tools become a natural extension of the studio process. And that's a beautiful thing to watch. That's a beautiful thing to even think in your mind that you have some small part in nurturing and allowing to come into being. And that's innovative. And there we go, in the studio. Got to get dirty. Got to get dirty, want to be clean. Got to get dirty, want to be clean. Sometimes I would leave to my computer class and I'm covered in plaster. And that's about right, okay? You should all be familiar with this. Need I say more? This is the genesis of the idea that you see outside. That's Jeff. Shannon Slane. This was one of the high points of the work because she represented one of my first students that went up to Atlanta and actually built a whole body of work around her ideas from digital fabrication. And Shannon's concerned with process. She's a vegetarian. She's concerned with how our foods are processed and the processes that they go through. And a wonderful body of work that talks about and that addresses that issue. Charles Surrey, Renaissance man, father of computer graphics. I say that proudly, okay? And one of the things that Chuck taught was to surround yourself with bright, creative people. And be comfortable sometimes knowing that you're not the smartest person in the room. And it's a beautiful thing. But give them and create an environment where collaboration can happen and they can begin to engage in peer teaching because that's where the dynamics occurs, when the grown-ups are out of the room and the kids have to solve the problems. And the other thing that I learned from Chuck, every day he was working. And for those people that sort of know me, they know that every day I'm hustling. That's my theme song. Every day I'm hustling. So you have to constantly practice your craft and have your students see you practicing your craft. High tech meets high touch. In this collaboration, we have an industrial design student paired with a fiber student. That's how we're going to describe objects in the future. That's how we are describing objects. That is the score for that. And when they come together and you get out of their way and let them do what youngins do, you get things like that, okay? And sometimes it's a problem that you need to solve. It's not the end product in and of itself, but it's a means to the end product, Okay? And so here we're using the computer as a tool to design a part that's eventually not even going to be seen in the end product. But it's the attitude that the students have towards the tools, towards the processes that lead them to innovation and creativity working together. This was an idea for a swell. It describes a wave. All of this came out of an 18 by 32 laser cutter. And this was all done outside of class during the summer with a diverse group of students from almost every school across SCAD, and it's the Digital Fabrication Club. And get out of their way, get them what they need, and they get going. And you get things like that. It's beautiful. And here, in this case, once again, we sort of see the script for our object. This was done with a flashlight and long exposure camera. So you get a photographer and some digital fabricators, and then we can begin to create things and derive forms like this that are then expressed in materials like that. You know, it's a wonderful, wonderful thing to see and to be a part of. And when you're really lucky, you get to work in collaboration with your students where we're all on an even keel. You know, and you're just working together. And that's sort of the great joy at this point, where we're all sort of working together, and this is our initial proposal. This is us actually doing the fabrication. One was a closed solid object, the other an open form, got shipped to Hong Kong and occupied the gallery like that. And so, in closing, I'd like to say, when you provide a wonderful environment for students to work in, you respect when and where they enter creatively, and you give them the freedom to make mistakes, work together, come up with their own solutions, you can get true creativity and innovation and be inspired. Thank you.